And we're off. Welcome everybody to the Monthly Movie Dispatch, the movie review show where from friends you can trust. Every week we broadcast a review of a new film, talk about some news, recommend what to watch. We've been talking, critiquing, and gushing over movies since we were young, and we aim to bring you an honest conversation about relevant cinema. I'm Derek. Hi everybody. I got Nick over here.
What's
How's it going?
up?
Today we are going to talk about Bad Trip. In my head, I was going to say Brad Pitt for some reason. That sounds similar to Bad Trip. But
Man, imagine if Brad Pitt was in this movie, Bad Trip.
that would
I don't think
be,
it'd be the same movie.
yeah, a little bit of
Also, I
star
don't think
power.
they'd be able to pull it off. They need a lot of makeup.
Right. Like, do you remember in, this is off topic, but Andy, Andy Serkis in The Long Shot? It's just like this completely unrecognizable for no reason at all, but he's just like, do you remember that?
Long Shot, the Seth Rogen, Charlize
Yeah.
Theron movie? Right, yeah. I think so. I'm kind of blanking. I think I might be mistaking him in my head of he's in that, but he's also in like Black Panther, right?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
But
And
in the long shot, he's just like, it's an unnecessary amount of makeup to completely disguise himself. And like the director was like, we
okay.
never asked him to do that. He just showed up like that.
Oh wow.
But yeah,
Wonderful.
that's why I imagine Brad, Brad Pitt in Bad Trip would be like. Anyways, so Bad Trip is kind of a unique
This whole
kind
episode,
of.
we're just gonna be saying Brad Tripp. Like I
It's so
swear,
confusing.
Brad Tripp.
Brad Trip, Bad Trip. Yeah, so I just want to talk about kind of this genre of movies that this film exists in because it's kind of a. It's been around for a while, but it's kind of a weird, unique kind of thing where it's kind of it's like a structured improv, but like also involving bystanders in the story and the storytelling.
Right. I mean, it's like a prank show, right? I mean,
Right. Yeah.
like from what I remember, like Jackass and Impractical Jokers, like those are prank shows that were turned into movies.
Right.
Um, the Eric Andre show wasn't a prank show necessarily, but
Right.
they took like that format and they turned it into a movie.
Yeah.
Can you think of any movies like this before Jackass?
I was trying to think back. I mean, Jackass was like what, the early 2000s? So,
Even in the 90s, maybe. I can't remember. I wasn't the biggest fan of Jackass.
right. Yeah. Well, I don't know. There's like, mockumentaries and stuff. I don't know if they ever dabbled in this kind of, like, I assume some of them probably did, just like as a cheap means to get a shot, just like do some stuff for real and have like characters out there. But I never saw like this is Spinal Tap and stuff like that. So I don't know if they ever really broke into that kind of thing. But
Yeah, I mean, Spinal Tap was very much like a mockumentary, like The Office or whatnot. Same with
oh,
all the
okay,
Christopher
so it's
Guest movies. Like they're very scripted. Like these
right,
are like borderline scripted. Like there's a thread of a story, but um, it's mostly about like the reactions of the people that they're kind of surprising.
right. I think.
Wasn't there a show around the time that like America's Funniest Home Videos was around, where they like a prank show? Maybe I'm thinking of the Jamie Kennedy
Oh
Experience,
yeah,
but
yeah. I guess
I
that's
feel like there
kind
was.
of. There was one. I think it was like a British show. It was on Comedy Central called Trigger Happy,
Okay.
and that was kind of the similar thing. It was like guys going around doing these not very elaborate but pranks on the public and filming their reactions and stuff. But
What What's your take on these kind of movies? Like, were you a fan of? I mean, Jackass the show or Jackass the movie?
yes, so I liked all of them honestly. I wasn't a huge fan of the show of Jackass, but the movies when they actually were willing when they like had the funds and stuff. Sorry, I'm gonna turn off my fan. I just realized it's on. When they had the funds to like pull off bigger elaborate pranks, like I love that stuff, and they
Yeah.
kind of were able to do things that Some of them are really, really funny, but then on the other side of Jackasses, they have things like things you just never be able to see before. Like what happens if you're just like playing behind a jet engine, like with that amount of force flying at you. That kind of stuff I liked a lot. Um, I wasn't so much into the like pain just for the joke of it, but
Yeah,
the more elaborate stuff that they got into was a lot funner. I thought I enjoyed that aspect of those movies a lot.
totally. You've seen all of them, like even like Jackass 3D wasn't
Mm-hmm.
that one of them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah, I think I saw that
yeah.
in theaters in 3D. I think.
Wow. Yeah,
um,
I mean, I like I said, I wasn't really a fan of Jackass. I don't know what it was. I think I might just be like stereotyped against it or something. Like I
yeah.
like have a block. It might be an unfair block, but for whatever
Right.
reason, I was like, Jackass, that's not for me.
Yeah.
But I haven't really given it a chance since. And me, like I'm a huge fan of Impractical Jokers. Like I
Right.
think those guys are freaking hilarious.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't really know why I think it might be the gross part of it, it might be the like the pain or the like the shock value. I never
Right.
felt like in Practical Jokers they're trying to like shock you. They're just trying to like make you uncomfortable or like
Right.
just do funny bits.
Yeah, for sure. What about like Borat? Where do you stand on Borat?
Oh yeah, Borat,
Or just
Borat.
any
I
of the
like
Sacha
Borat.
Baron Cohen stuff, I
Right,
guess, really.
right. I like those. Don't get me wrong. I like those. I kind of forgot that he was part of this whole thing. And yeah, I mean, we talked about Borat last year, and I think all of us were like not as into the movie as a lot of the rest of the general public was. But
Mm.
I mean, I definitely laughed a lot, and I liked the Ali G show quite a bit back in its heyday, and I find it thoroughly impressive that he's able to do those things.
Yeah.
So I respect this. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I respect this kind of show.
For sure.
My question that I was talking to Shannon about this last night, like we were talking about like our star rating for Bad Trip,
Yeah.
and like I wonder what the ceiling is for these movies. Like we're watching. I think Shannon was going to give it 3.5, and she was like, I don't know if I could give any movie like this 4 stars.
All
And
right.
I was like, I mean, there's got to be a 4-star version of this type of movie out there. In fact, maybe there's a 5-star version of it where it's like transcendent,
All right.
like your mind is just like blown in like a
Right.
really meaningful and special way. But I don't know what that is, and I don't know if exists or could exist.
What about,
What do you think?
would you consider like this kind of leads into that question, but the Dirties? Do you consider that like in this genre? Because I know they filmed a lot of it in a similar way with like all the kids and stuff you see don't necessarily know they're actually making a movie. So you have like kids just come up and stare at him in the middle of a scene and stuff like that. But I guess it's a
Yeah.
little different because I think like um, the big moments were all kind of everyone was in on it. Everyone knew what was
Right. I
going
mean, they
down.
would have had to have scripted out. For those of you who don't know, The Dirties is a pretty indie movie, right? I mean, like
Yeah,
they were pretty young when they made it, and it's
yeah,
like they were like film students at their high school, and they were being bullied, and then they like were going to make a movie about a school shooting, but then one of them took it too seriously and kind of lost, he went over the deep end with it. But yeah, I honestly like I didn't realize when I watched it. I think like now that I'm thinking about it, like I don't know if I knew what went into it. Like I
oh
don't know
yeah,
if I knew that they hadn't planned that whole thing out. So
oh I
like
see.
that's a surprise to me
Oh
that
yeah, from what
that
I
like
they like Kevin
kids in the
Smith
show.
like got their movie distributed, and so he had them on his podcast, and they had mentioned that they were enrolled, as far as all the other students knew, they were enrolled in that school and they were students at that school, and they were just like filming stuff. And so like there's literally like a scene where a kid just walks up in the middle of them while they're having a dialogue, and he's just like an awkward high schooler just like staring at him for no reason.
Yeah.
And they both just like look at him and then he walks away.
Weird.
But I know like there's no
Yeah.
way they could have filmed like the ending and stuff without people knowing what was going on and stuff.
Right, unless they wanted to seriously traumatize people.
Right. Yeah.
But
But yeah, but I
yeah,
would say like
that's really interesting.
if that like counts, I would say something along those lines. If you could like pull something off like that for real, and I mean not specifically that topic, but something that actually has like a good or like some sort of a message or some sort of a
Yeah.
that's trying to say something. I mean, I people are pretty insistent that Borat was really trying to say something. I don't really know that it was, but I think Sacha Baron Cohen is probably trying to get he's probably trying to say something with his stuff, um, but it just kind of I don't know. It's like almost impossible. I don't know. I feel like maybe Borat one or Bruno is probably like about as good as you're gonna get with this kind of stuff. Like just
Especially when it's a
genuine.
comedy, I guess. The
Yeah,
Dirties wasn't a comedy; it
that's
was
true.
very much drama. So, and it's like the prank show element part of it too, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah,
How are they? How would you make that transcendent? So
yeah,
maybe there is a ceiling to the prank show element of it all, but
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe someone has an idea out there that could make this a 5-star kind of product, or
yeah.
maybe someone considers Jackass a 5-star kind of thing.
All right.
I I don't know, but it is interesting to think about. Yeah, I feel like part of it's probably how much you buy into it as well. Like how
Yeah,
much
that's
it
true.
like gets you. You know what I mean?
All
Like,
right. If you're like, there's probably some people that are just constantly nonstop laughter from start to finish in Bad Trip,
yeah,
And I mean, if that's what you're going for in a comedy, like that's a 5-star comedy. If you're just like hurting at the end of it, you've been laughing so hard. So you never know.
for sure. Yeah,
But let's move into the review for Bad Trip.
cool. Let's do it.
It's directed by Kitao Sakurai. Stars Eric Andre, Lil Rel Howery, and Tiffany Haddish. And the plot that kind of strings together all the pranks is two friends embark on a road trip full of funny pranks that pull real people into mayhem. I guess that's not really the plot, but the plot is he's trying to win over like, or he's they go on a road trip for him to like ask the girl of his dreams out because he saw her one day, and that's it.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
reason.
yeah.
uh,
Saw her one day, and then he was like, "Let's go on a road trip to New York City so I can
yeah,
fall in love with this girl."
yeah. And part of it feels like it's kind of poking fun at that like whole trope of like the road trip movie. It's like it almost feels like they intentionally chose like the most hollowest reason to go on a road trip because
Yeah,
that's
I
how those
definitely.
movies are. Also, they just have like
Yeah,
no
for
really.
sure. I definitely read a review that was like talking about all of that stuff. Like this movie is a deconstruction of the road trip movie rom-com type thing, and
Yeah,
he went into a lot of detail about how they like really like exposed all the cliches of this movie. And yeah, I didn't see that when I watched this. I
mm-hmm.
just thought it was like a funny haha, and they just all they needed was a simple plot.
All right.
But um, some people are reading the movie that way.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely felt that like sarcasm, in a lot of it, and especially with like the dance number that breaks out and stuff, and like I don't know, I felt like they did a good job kind of spoofing it as much as they could while doing these pranks. Like I would say that the movie is like a spoof of the road trip movie, as far as the story that they put forward is,
Yeah.
outside of the pranks. Um, but yeah, it's kind of. I thought this. I guess we'll go over my initial thoughts about the movie. I thought it was very on brand for Eric Andre. I've watched a lot of his show, and he has his like remote segments where he's not in the studio and he's out on the street and stuff, and they're very much in the same vein of doing like unthinkable, shocking things in front of people to see how they'll react. And usually it's like the more like social danger he puts himself in, the better. Like that's kind of what he's aiming for. Not necessarily like violence as much, but more like what can I do that will make people so mad they'll attack me kind of thing. And So yeah, I felt that this movie kind of nailed that, but in a more digestible way. His show's pretty off-putting a lot of times, unless you're like specifically there for what he does. I think this
Yeah,
movie's a lot more accessible. They kind of tone it down
yeah,
a bit, which is pretty
for sure.
shocking, honestly, when you watch this movie. This is the toned down Eric Andre.
Yeah, it's shocking that the movie isn't as shocking as you would expect it to be.
Right.
But I agree. I think that's a good thing,
Yeah.
personally. I
No,
mean, the
for
show's
sure.
great. The show is very funny, but like it's it can be very insane,
Yeah.
just like bombastic.
Yeah.
And when I was turning it on with my wife, she was kind of like nervous going into it, just leaning like, I don't know what's gonna happen with Eric Andre. I don't
Yeah.
know if I'm gonna enjoy this. And like after the first scene and seeing how it wasn't too much,
Mm-hmm.
like she was on board. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like the first scene, there's a vacuum cleaner and his clothes get ripped off, and it's just like it's kind of innocent if you think about
Right.
it. Like
Yeah.
that's like an innocent sort of joke, and but it is very funny the way they play it. So
Yeah.
it brings you in instead of like pushes you away.
Yeah. It kind of felt like just watching this movie. It's like, man, he's like grown up. Like he's he's calmed down a little bit, and he's still funny. He's able to like do funny stuff without just going balls to the wall, disgusting, like gross stuff.
Yeah. I wonder if
But
that was him or like the budget,
yeah,
those
people like
producers.
yeah. Well, and I noticed like I haven't read anything into like the making of this movie. I don't know like why. I was kind of surprised that they didn't get like Hannibal Buress, and instead they got Lil Rel Howery, which I think he was great. He was like a great straight man for this, to be with Eric Andre in this.
Yeah.
Maybe Hannibal's a little crazy on the show too, so maybe it just wouldn't quite work as well as a film. But
Maybe
um,
Hannibal will be too recognizable. I mean,
that's
he's
kind of
been.
what I was thinking too. Yeah, I
I mean,
don't know.
Tiffany Haddish is super famous at this
Well,
point too,
that's
but there
yeah,
were
that
scenes where they decked her out in makeup.
yeah,
Like they were definitely trying to play down her appearance.
for sure. And she like really nailed that character, I think, really well. So when she barges into a room, no one's thinking like, "Is that Tiffany Haddish?" Everyone's like, "Oh fuck! Oh shit!" Like,
Yeah,
you
you're
know,
right. Stay away from this bad bitch.
yeah,
I'm sorry. Her car is called Bad
yeah,
Bitch. Like
yeah,
it's a giant pink car that says Bad Bitch all over it.
yeah.
I'm not trying to use the word bitch in a derogatory way. I'm just
No,
it's a joke from the movie.
it's a big yeah. It's the plot point of the film. Is she's after her car that says "bad bitch" on it.
Yeah, she loves that car.
But I thought for the most part, like everything worked really well in the movie. I thought they did a good job at keeping the story simple enough that we were able to like follow along with it and not get bored with it while they ran. And it worked great as a connection for all the gags. It wasn't like I compare this to the Impractical Jokers movie because that didn't really work for me at all. And I think they were trying to be maybe like too funny with the premise or something. Like they were just going too far with it. Whereas this, like, kind of, keeping it just like a simple rom com, just kind of making fun of it a little bit here and there, but just using it as like it's barely a part of the movie. It's like the beginning and the end, but the rest of it's just kind of filler. And so I think that is how you do that kind of story with or this kind of movie.
Yeah, I agree completely, Derek. I actually said that while we were watching it, where I was like, this just what they're doing in Bad Trip just works. Like it's a simple enough story, and then the gags went along with the story well enough.
Yeah.
Where like I think back to the Impractical Jokers, and like I remember feeling like it was basically one long episode that had
Mm-hmm.
a story that didn't fit into the jokes that they were doing.
Right. Yeah.
Like I remember the jokes being pretty funny, but even now, like I can't tell you what the plot was. Like,
Right.
were they gonna go to a Kiss concert or something? I honestly
Yeah, I
can't
don't really
remember.
know.
So,
It was yeah.
kind of
Um
disappointing.
yeah. But I mean, yeah, I thought they did a great job with this and they lucked out. I'm guessing, based off like the end credits and stuff, it looks like they probably filmed some of these gags multiple times. but like they got some great like side characters out of the bystanders. They get pulled into these gags, and I was pretty impressed. Like every time a bystander would step up into a situation, you're just like, wow, like
Yeah.
it's so surprising.
Yeah.
You know, you don't imagine people like willingly be so like involved and also helpful. Like everyone's just trying
Right.
to help him through everything that's going on.
There's like subtext in this movie about how people come together to help out other people.
Yeah.
There are so many examples of this movie where people would step up and just like be a supportive and helpful person. And it's
Hmm.
like, especially like in this age of post COVID or mid pandemic, where like, I don't know about you, but like I've lost faith in a lot of people. Seeing
Yeah.
this kind of movie and seeing how people are just like stepping up to like, help out strangers, it was kind of like life affirming a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't want you to get like all like philosophical about the silly Eric Andre movie, but
Right.
man, there were some like really like cool and helpful people in there.
Yeah.
Like there was that nurse. Like there's a scene where he gets drunk and he falls off of, I don't even know what he fell off of. It was like
It was like the
a
top of a
scaffold or something.
bar inside or
Yeah, it was like the
giant
top
country
part of the
bar.
bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he fell through a table. I mean, it was like the most wrestling moment you could have. And a nurse immediately stepped up and was like, "Okay, we need to check his vitals right now." And then he started throwing up, and it was the most unbelievable throw up.
Yeah.
Like I loved it. I don't even usually love throw up jokes, but like it was like spraying like the blood in Kill Bill, just like
Yeah.
out of his hands, and she's like dead serious, being like, if he's vomiting like that, then we need him to get him to a hospital right now.
Yeah.
And like, but then I'm glad you brought the end credits, because I loved the end credits. How they like showed you like a peek behind the curtain,
Hmm.
and like how they revealed to these people how how it was a joke, and these people weren't upset. They like, that nurse was very much just like, you dick, like
Yeah.
she was just like laughing about it,
Yeah.
like, I thought you were in danger, and it's like, it's nice. It was like a
Yeah.
nice, like, wholesome moment
Yeah. I think there's
in a wholesome movie.
only one moment in there that looked pretty sketchy, which is when it's the scene where they have their like dick stuck in the Chinese finger trap or whatever it's called, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And they run
yeah.
into the barber shop. I'm assuming that wasn't scripted. I don't know.
Right. So I actually read about this, Derek. I
Oh,
read
okay.
about this. So apparently they went into the wrong barber shop. Like they had another barber shop down the street that they were supposed to go into, that
Hmm.
had like security and like had it all like planned out, but like whatever, in the craziness of the moment, they went into the wrong barber shop, and yeah, that guy did not take it well, and he
Yeah,
chased them out with a
with a
knife, and
knife.
all of that was legit. That was a real
That's
thing that happened.
crazy. I didn't go
Yeah.
back to rewatch, but I would bet like when they run out, they're not like doing their like keep the dicks together thing. Like I think they're full on sprinting out, and he's chasing him with a knife.
Yeah.
So you hear him, he's just like, "Oh fuck, he has a knife," and they just go running down. But
Yeah. Oh
yeah,
boy, those guys.
yeah,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So overall, I really liked it. Trying to think of like there's some stuff in there like this is just like the stuff I think you would run into when you're making this kind of movie. Like I'm thinking of the big like car accident. I don't know if there's anything that's a spoiler in the movie, but it's like
Yeah, I mean, the car accident is on the poster for the movie.
right, yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. So
yeah, I mean, I hear you, Derek. I mean, like, it's kind of, this is one of those things where, like, you're going to run into this with comedies where, like, we could spoil jokes,
right,
but I don't know if the joke's good enough, then I don't know. We'll
yeah.
probably laugh anyway.
I think we're fine with this movie.
So,
Um,
rough spoilers ahead, I
yeah.
guess. But
But they have the big, yeah. I guess it's probably their biggest like part of the movie. Like they probably spent the most money on and stuff. So they have this big car accident, and I couldn't help but get really distracted in that scene because I'm just like, I didn't realize until the car crash it. Like they do the second shot of the car like flying through the air, and you see people like watching it. and I was like, oh, they're like, this is a stunt. I didn't realize that's what was happening, and then I was kind of just like really distracted trying to like figure out, it's like, how did they do that? Like, and it's kind of like weirdly edited, and I'm like, there's no way Eric Andre and Lil Rel Howery were in the car when they smashed into another car at like 50 and flipped through the air and like landed upside down.
I don't
I'm not
know.
gonna say it's impossible, but I feel like they weren't in that car. But the way everyone acts, like they must have done something to trick the people that watched it happen, into, I don't know.
Right. I
It was
mean,
just kind of a weird
I
scene
don't
where I was
know.
like, I wonder how they. It seemed like everyone's reactions were genuine, and they have a little bit of in the post credits. So I think it was. I don't know how they did it. Like if they did it for real and they were in there, like holy crap, like that puts a lot more, like way more respect on these guys for like sitting through something like that. Like that was a big flip, and like that's like a real deal stuntman car accident.
Yeah, it was a very, very
So
big car accident. It was like multiple shots. I mean, yeah, for sure. And yeah, Derek, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if they were in it or not. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they were, just because Eric Andre does seem like a madman.
right.
And I feel like they could stage the car well enough, like in this day and age where, stunts are very much a big thing.
Yeah.
They know how to do stunts safely. Like, they could make some sort of harness or very safe padded seat or
Yeah.
something where like Eric Andre, you guys are going to be okay, and
Yeah.
I don't know, I just can't help but think like maybe they did do it, maybe they did flip the car,
Yeah.
and then like part of it is just like that's how intense it was, but I don't know, I really don't know. And I mean, that kind of leads me into like another question for you a little bit, in that like when you watch these types of movies, do you try to like, figure it out, what's
hmm
real and what's not?
Yeah.
Because like,
Constantly.
yeah, okay. Because I was wondering, because I don't know, Shan does that, and she's like trying to figure it out. And like there's a scene early on where he's running through houses, and he like runs through like a window, basically.
Yeah.
That's a sliding glass door. He like sprints through a sliding glass door, and it like glass flies everywhere, and he like runs out the front of the door, and he's like, sorry about your window,
Yeah.
uh and then the lady who's in the house, she's like freaked out, but she doesn't like freak the fuck out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? She like kind of calmly walks out the front door and hides for a
Right.
second, you
Yeah.
know? And then, I mean, spoiler, like they show it in the post credit scene, like she's like a hired cleaning lady. So clearly they like set it up ahead of time
Yeah.
for her to be like just cleaning that house. And then she just didn't know that someone was going to run through it. And it's not her house, so she's not going to freak the f out,
Right.
because it's just like it's not her window, I guess.
Right.
Um but yeah, it's kind of like interesting, like watching it and trying to like figure it out. And are they tricking you, like what's real and what's not real? I
Right.
mean, it's kind of like pro wrestling in that way, where like it
Right.
kind of like toes the line of reality a bit.
I think it's a lot of like getting real people into controlled environments that, like, the studio has set up. So it's like we bring them into here and we control everything in here. So we don't have to,
Yeah.
worry about like damaging real property and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's kind of what I kept thinking, was like, well, they probably hired like a company to like to do something in this location.
Yeah.
But yeah, I actually wanted to bring up, going back real quick to the car accident.
Yeah.
And speaking of like people that are helping out, there's a guy who like steps up to help
Oh yeah.
out,
Yeah.
and he was a guy who I was like watching him, and he was like trying to comfort both Eric Andre and his best friend,
Yeah.
Lil Ray Howley. And they're like, he's trying to like basically like mediate them.
Right.
and he's got a lot of charisma.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm watching and being like, is he an actor? Because if he's not an actor, he's like a really special human.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
He
for
was
sure.
like something else.
Yeah. That whole scene, I really like that scene a lot too, because like that like shows the commitment, I guess, that the actors have to like what they're doing, because like that's like the dramatic scene in the movie. They're actually having like a real like argument, but it's like in public pretty much, and like they're trying to like keep that emotion going while like bystanders are getting involved and stuff. And, like that's like one of the most impressive things I think about this movie is how these actors can. I mean, there's tons of people that have the skill. There's lots of shows that follow this kind of storytelling, the way of storytelling, but it's just like constantly I'm like, God, how are they not like reacting like to how these random bystanders are acting towards them, because it's just so freaking funny. Or it's like, I guess maybe it's easier when it's like a guy that's like that who's being all nice to him and stuff. They can just like focus on the story that they're trying to get through right there. But
Yeah. And I mean, also just the fact that like Eric Andre like has no shame as well. We're
right.
like that's the other
Yeah.
impressive bit of it is just how little shame he's willing to get on a bus and just like yell and sing and do whatever, and
Yeah.
he has like no hesitation about it. And the rest of the people on the bus are just like, "Who is this guy? What's going on?"
Yeah.
It's very impressive, especially like if you're a shy person or something. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, for sure. I really liked, probably the hardest I laughed. I actually think I rewound it because it made me laugh so hard. It was just like there it's such a small moment, but he's like, oh, he'd just seen his love, like the love of his life for the first time. She like gives him a card and then leaves. And he's like reading it, and everyone's like all like, oh, kind of for a moment. He just puts his hand in a blender and he's just like there's just blood flying everywhere.
Oh
And
my
that's how
gosh,
the
that was
scene
so
ends.
funny.
Uh,
Yeah, I really like the scene when they're at the restaurant, and
yeah.
it's like a diner type thing, and Tiffany Haddish shows up looking for them, and
Mm-hmm.
she's like really intense, just being like, "These guys stole my car, and I'm going to kill them,"
Yeah.
and she was like really intense about it, and then she leaves, and then they show up,
Yeah.
and she had like pictures of them and pictures of the car and stuff that she's showing people, and then the people in the restaurant are like, "Oh, she was just here and she's looking for you and she's going to kill you," and they're like, "Nah, though. I mean, that wasn't really her,
Yeah.
right?" And they're like, "No, it was her, and she's going to kill you." And then they leave, and then she shows back up, and there's one lady there who's like kind of the centerpiece of the scene, and she gets so like into it, you know?
Invested in the situation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like she's going like, "Yeah, go get them, go get them." She's like cheering Tiffany Hash on, and then Tiffany Hash has like a staple gun, and she's like, "Yeah, snap, snap, snap," and this lady, "Oh, she's got a gun." Like, she's just like so in the moment. Like,
Yeah.
I just love those pure genuine reactions from people, and
Yeah.
how just so much fun seeing people get like into it,
Yeah.
and react in a big way.
I like in that scene too, they even leave like they they like left the audio on for a little bit longer, like once they left. It's just like some conversations that are like happening after they leave, and they're like, well, if she does, she said she was gonna kill him, so that's like an act of terrorism and stuff like that.
Totally, totally.
Just
Yeah,
like
that
that.
was really good. Um, I did want to ask you,
Yeah.
were there any parts that went over the line for you?
um I don't think, not as far as like what I would have expected. Um,
Okay.
like his show goes very far over the line. I feel like pretty often. And this one, it has like some gross out stuff. Like the zoo was pretty gross. um,
That's my scene, honestly. Like that's my scene where I'm just like, you don't need that. It's
yeah,
just like number one, it's like not believable.
right,
I don't believe that gorilla would just like rape someone. And then
right,
also the way they did it, it was just like so over the top. Where like he's not just being raped by the gorilla, he's like being like face effed by the
Yeah.
gorilla.
Yeah.
Just like, and then like the ejaculate like
Oh my
comes,
god.
like, it's just, I don't know. That to me was like, okay, that was kind of my line, and
Right.
uh but like I didn't turn off the movie because of it or anything. I'm not trying to be a prude or whatnot. That was just like the one thing where I was like, okay, that was a little over the line for me,
Yeah.
but okay.
I think that's him dabbling into like where he likes to be. I think he likes to be right on the line as much as possible, you know. And I think for how dialed back he was, that was kind of like the one for him. He was able to. He's like, I don't want people to be happy. I mean, not that he doesn't want them to be happy, but I guess like I don't want them to feel like any positive thing about
Feel
what's
safe.
happening here. Yeah, I want them to be horrified. And yeah, and the scene was just kind of weird too because I guess like all of them kind of have like a momentum to them where like with the good-natured people like reacting in different ways, and in that scene it's like people are like so mad at him afterwards, it's like a weird, I don't know, it's just like the whole thing just feels so sour. um like visually it's horrifying, but then like the people are like mad at him afterwards too, like the bystanders are like mad at him for going in there and stuff like that, like they're
Yeah,
berating him for for that
yeah.
happening to him.
They
But
did show some of the people in the end credits, and they were like okay with it. I mean,
yeah, no, for sure.
maybe they didn't show people who would be upset, but I don't know.
Right.
They seem to make amends with those people.
Yeah. I mean, I'd bet like something like that, like there's probably a chance that not everybody bought it also, and so it's like you kind of have to work around that when they're actually putting the scene together in the movie. It's like, I don't know. I
Totally.
feel like most people, if you're at the zoo and you're walking through and you're seeing all these animals, like it's probably not terribly difficult to be like, that's not a gorilla, But I
Right.
mean, some people are just kind of caught up in the moment. If something crazy is happening, all of a sudden, you're not really looking at the details. But I would bet. I mean, I think that's a problem with all prank shows. It's like sometimes people spot the prank.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of curious if maybe that's why the reactions were a little different in that scene. They didn't actually get anybody that, um, they didn't get like a group of people that was 100% sold on what was happening all the way through. So you didn't get as genuine of a reaction. Also, it might have
Yeah.
just been it was so gross that people were like, "What the fuck? How do I even react to this?" Like, yeah,
Yeah. And I mean, like in terms of like set pieces or like jokes, like that was one of their bigger, like, more elaborate sort of jokes.
yeah,
And I mean, I think that's kind of like part of the reason I wasn't super into it, because I don't know. I tend to like simpler stuff a little bit more, just with my humor in general.
mm-hmm.
Like one of my favorite jokes in the movie was after he had a falling out with his best friend. He was just like walking around the streets, and every guy he saw that was wearing glasses, he thought was his friend, and he just kept
mm-hmm.
being like, he'd run up to him and be like, "Oh, sorry, I thought you were my friend," and
Yeah,
then he'd like a second later be like, oh, sorry, I thought you were my friend," and
yeah,
like that's one of those jokes where they like, they do it twice. Sean was talking about this last week in the Barb and Star episode of like,
mm.
you do it once, it's funny. You do it twice, you're like, okay, but then you do it like 3, 4 times, and you're like, it just keeps getting
So
funnier.
yeah, 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 for sure. Um, yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot to dissect in this movie. At the end of the day, it's a pretty straightforward, silly prank movie. But what did you end up giving it for like a star rating?
I'm probably gonna give it 3.5, probably with a heart, because I did enjoy it.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably right around the same. I was this morning. I was like, would I give this movie a 4 star? Like, cause here's the thing, I don't really know what I don't like about it. Uh, like I did feel uncomfortable, and like, there's scenes that I like just par for the course with his humor. Like I'm nervous every time a scene's starting, because I'm like, what is gonna happen here? Like,
Yeah. Well, here's my
but
question for you then. Like, would you rewatch it?
I probably would, yeah. Like if I knew
Okay.
somebody else that would like it, I'd probably watch it with them because it
Yeah. Okay.
definitely
So
was
you.
funny from start to finish. I enjoyed it quite a bit, and it's short enough that you have a
Sorry,
ghost. Oh,
that's embarrassing.
what? Oh,
Also, my phone's not on me, so I can't turn it off. So
oh,
this is great podcast, guys.
oh, we can
Sorry
barely
about
hear it.
that.
It's fine. You can barely hear it.
Well, uh, sorry about that.
Oh, that's fine.
Um,
But yeah, like I just don't know what I didn't
they
like
were
about it.
amateurs.
Who were? Oh, we are.
Are you still there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I think I lost you. 1 second. Sorry. Difficulties.
Well, I'll keep talking real quick. I think like part of the problem is that like this kind of movie is just so hard to do. So it's hard to say like if it's good or bad. But all I know is I really enjoyed it, and even when it's messy and stuff, it's still fun. So I'd probably end up giving it a 4 star. Um, Nick, can you hear me? Well, I'm gonna go over next week's episode. Um, so next week.
I'm back.
Oh, you're back.
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me? Are you there?
I think you're on your phone now.
Well, okay. Well, I mean, you're wrapping it up anyway. I had one
Yeah.
last quick thing,
Yeah.
but is my audio like so much worse? Is it like,
It's fine. We'll just finish it.
well, I had one quick trivia, trivia fact. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so the director Kaito Sakari got his start in Hollywood, acting in Dogma as one of the Stegan triplets.
Ah, that is fun trivia.
Yeah, yeah. So that's Nick's trivia corner for the day for the
Nice.
episode.
Nice.
So sorry about the technical difficulty, but that's Nick's trivia corner. So
Nice.
pop pop for that.
Pop pop. Um all right. Well, so yeah. Next week it is going to be Nick again and Sean. We're going to be reviewing Saint Maud. That's pretty exciting. This movie's been
New horror
like
movie.
been knocked around for a while and finally people are getting able to see it. Um yeah, so like and subscribe. We do this every week, same time, same day. Um, you can follow us on Letterbox. Podcast is on Spotify. And yeah, I think that's it. Monthly Movie Dispatch. We'll see you next week. Bye.